There are truths so subtle, so deeply woven into the very fabric of existence, that most of us live entire lifetimes without daring to approach them. We move through the world in a half-sleep, convinced that the rise of the sun, the duties of the day, the dramas of relationships, and the passage of years are the substance of life itself. Yet, like shadows dancing on the walls of a cavern, these daily events conceal a greater reality that whispers through dreams, synchronicities, and those moments of déjà vu when the soul remembers what the mind forgets. To begin to ask, why do I keep coming back here? Is to pierce the veil and touch the most unsettling of mysteries, reincarnation. Not as a fanciful idea whispered in temples, or as a cultural superstition, but as an unrelenting mechanism of reality itself, grinding on like a cosmic wheel that few ever escape. The question that haunts the seeker is not simply, do we return? But, why do we return at all? Behind that inquiry lies an even deeper truth, one that they do not want you to discover. Who is they? Perhaps it is the architects of a system designed to harvest energy from souls. Perhaps it is the collective inertia of humanity, hypnotized and unwilling to awaken. Or perhaps it is simply the veil itself, the great forgetting that cloaks us at birth, ensuring that each time we arrive, we are stripped of memory, cast into the river of Lethe, and left to stumble forward blind. To approach this mystery is to feel both awe and unease. Awe, because it suggests that existence is vast and layered, that death is not an end but a doorway to another corridor. Unease, because it forces us to confront the possibility that what we thought was freedom is actually a loop, a cycle, a game that repeats itself until we learn the elusive lesson that dissolves the wheel. In many traditions, this wheel is known as samsara, the cycle of birth and death, but across cultures, the theme emerges again and again. Life is not linear, it is circular, and each turn of the circle presents us with mirrors of unresolved truths. Imagine a stage where you have performed countless plays, wearing costumes of gender, nationality, wealth, and poverty. Each time the curtain falls, you step off stage into a fog, only to be handed another role, another script, another set of challenges you half remember. The audience changes, but the themes remain: love and betrayal, power and loss, growth and decay. If you watch closely, the patterns are unmistakable. The same mistakes repeat. The same lessons resurface. The same hungers drive you, lifetime after lifetime. To awaken is to finally notice that the stage itself is not reality, it is the trap. And yet, calling it a trap risks oversimplifying, for the wheel is not merely a prison, but a school. If one does not awaken, it imprisons. If one sees clearly, it transforms into a teacher. This duality is the paradox at the heart of reincarnation. It is both a system that binds us and a system that refines us. What they do not want you to know is that freedom is not found by denying the cycle, but by understanding its mechanics so completely that you step out of it, not in rebellion, but in transcendence. There are whispers of this truth encoded in ancient wisdom. The Egyptians spoke of the weighing of the heart, a test not of dogma, but of vibrational resonance. The Gnostics spoke of archons, beings who feed on the energy of human souls and keep them bound to cycles of ignorance. The Eastern sages spoke of karma, not as punishment, but as the residue of unconscious choices, drawing us back again and again. Even in the words of Jesus, beneath the layers of translation and dogma, one finds the call to be born again, not endlessly, but once, in a way that awakens the eternal self, rather than recycling the temporary form. The idea that reincarnation is inevitable is only half the truth. The deeper revelation is that reincarnation continues only as long as you remain unconscious of your own essence. As long as you identify with the mask, the role, the costume, you are destined to return. The moment you recognize that the actor behind the mask is infinite, that the script is not yours to obey, but yours to transcend, the cycle begins to crack. That is what has been hidden. You are not simply a character, nor even a student. You are the dreamer of the play itself. And once you know that, the stage loses its power over you. This knowledge, however, is not safe. It disrupts the machinery of a world built on repetition. Entire systems of control, economic, religious, political, thrive on the assumption that you will forget who you are, that you will remain obedient within the cycle. To question reincarnation's purpose is to threaten those structures. For a soul that realizes it is infinite is a soul that cannot be manipulated by fear of death or the lure of promises. Such a soul becomes sovereign, luminous, free. As we begin this exploration, I invite you to hold both wonder and caution. We are not here to recite doctrines or to cling to ready-made answers. We are here to peer into the machinery of existence, to see where the gears grind and why they spin. The real reason you keep reincarnating is not a simple sentence that can be written in a book or explained in a lecture. It is a living truth, a key that reveals itself layer by layer as you are ready to hold it. In the pages that follow, we will unravel these layers, not as dogma, but as a mirror to your own knowing, a remembrance of something you already carry deep within. Because once you glimpse the truth, you can never look at this life, or the lives before and after, in the same way again. The veil may fall, but the vision remains, and with it comes both responsibility and liberation. To ask, why do I keep reincarnating, is to place your hand on the door of your own prison and realize that the lock has always been on the inside. To step deeper into this labyrinth of understanding, we must now walk through the pillars that hold the very architecture of reincarnation in place. It is tempting to imagine the cycle of birth and rebirth as something arbitrary, as if the soul is tossed back into existence by chance or by some cruel authority. But the truth is more intricate, more deliberate, and far more revealing. The cycle itself is an intelligent design, both mirror and crucible, reflecting to us what remains unhealed, while simultaneously forging the raw material of our spirit into something capable of transcending form altogether. Yet the question remains, why are we drawn back, lifetime after lifetime, as if pulled by an unseen gravity? At the heart of this lies the dance between illusion and truth. Illusion presents itself as permanence. This body, this name, this life, this drama. Truth whispers that all of it is fleeting, a temporary garment worn by something eternal. The tension between these two states is the very reason reincarnation persists. Each time you enter a body, you are draped in illusion, seduced into forgetting that you are more than the sum of your flesh and memories. And yet, within the fabric of illusion is always woven a thread of truth, moments that awaken you, a sudden déjà vu, a dream too vivid to ignore, a synchronicity that seems orchestrated by something larger. These glimpses are not accidents. They are the breadcrumbs left for you by your own soul. Reminders that you are walking a path, not for the first time, but for the 100th, the 1000th. The second theme is the residue of choice, often called karma, though misunderstood by many. Karma is not a ledger of punishments and rewards handed down by some cosmic judge. It is the echo of our own unconsciousness, reverberating across lifetimes until recognized and released. If you strike a bell, its sound continues long after your hand has withdrawn. So it is with every thought, every deed, every wound ignored or avoided. When a life ends, the echoes of unresolved experiences remain, pulling the soul back into the field of matter so that the song can either be completed or transcended. This is why patterns repeat with uncanny precision. The same kinds of relationships, the same struggles, the same failures. The cycle insists that what was left unhealed must be faced again until the lesson is not only learned, but embodied. But there is another layer, more unsettling, more hidden. Some traditions speak of entities, keepers of the wheel, who benefit from the continued ignorance of humanity. They feed, not in the crude sense of devouring flesh, but in the energetic sense of harvesting fear, desire, attachment. Each return to the cycle offers them more sustenance, more energy. Whether one imagines them as the archons of Gnostic lore, the lords of karma in certain Eastern texts, or simply as the unconscious collective mind that resists awakening, the effect is the same, a force that benefits from your forgetting, that thrives on your return. It is not so much an external villain as it is a reflection of the inertia of the system itself. As long as you remain unaware of your sovereignty, you are food for the cycle. Still, reincarnation is not only prison and predator, it is also opportunity. Within each life is the seed of liberation, hidden in plain sight. This is the paradox. The very system that binds you is also the one that prepares you for release. The wheel turns endlessly until you finally recognize the wheel itself. And in that recognition, its hold begins to loosen. Imagine a dream in which you suffer, fight, and wander, believing all of it to be real. Until one night, you suddenly realize you are dreaming. The monsters chasing you dissolve, the walls around you melt, and you discover not only freedom, but mastery. Reincarnation is that dream. An awakening is the moment you realize you are the dreamer, not the dreamed. The next theme is memory, or more precisely, the veil of forgetting. Each time you are born, the slate is wiped clean. The memories of countless lives, the lessons hard-earned, the pains endured, all submerged beneath the surface of consciousness. It is this forgetting that ensures the game continues, for if you remembered everything at once, the illusion could not hold. Yet fragments slip through, a child speaking of places they've never seen, a sudden terror at a scene that feels too familiar, an attraction to a person you've just met, but somehow already know. These cracks in the veil are gifts, hints that the soul remembers even when the mind does not. And the purpose of the cycle is not to bury memory forever, but to help you discover how to awaken memory consciously, to remember who you are not by accident, but by intention. And finally, we must speak of choice. For as much as the cycle appears mechanical, as much as it feels imposed upon us, there is always a moment of choice. Before incarnation, during life, at the threshold of death. These choices are often obscured, disguised as inevitability, yet they carry immense weight. To choose awareness over numbness, love over fear, truth over convenience, each decision nudges the soul toward freedom. The real reason you keep reincarnating is not simply that they want you to, or that karma demands it, or that memory fails you. It is because, at the deepest level, you keep choosing it until you no longer need to. You choose it because the lesson is not yet complete, because some aspect of yourself still seeks expression, healing, integration. And when that integration is whole, when the illusion no longer seduces, when the residue of karma is released and the predators of ignorance can no longer feed, then the wheel stops. To understand these themes is to glimpse the architecture of your existence. Illusion and truth, karma and choice, memory and forgetting, prison and school, predator and teacher. All of these are not contradictions but harmonies, working together to keep you circling until you realize you are not the circle at all. This is why the question of reincarnation is not theoretical but immediate, not abstract but practical. Because every choice you make now, every pattern you repeat or transform, is shaping whether you remain on the wheel or step beyond it. The real reason you keep reincarnating is because you have not yet remembered fully. The system is designed this way, and you are both participant and architect. The moment you claim that truth, you stand at the threshold of liberation. Stories have always been the language of the soul, the way truths too vast for the intellect are carried across time. When philosophy feels abstract and doctrine feels rigid, a symbol or an allegory can awaken something that lies dormant in the heart. To truly grasp why you keep reincarnating, it is not enough to examine the mechanics of karma, memory, and illusion. You must also step into the deeper currents of symbolic narratives that illuminate what logic cannot hold. These stories do not belong to one tradition alone. They echo across cultures like whispers of a shared dream. Consider the tale of the eternal traveler. Imagine a pilgrim walking a vast desert under a sky of uncountable stars. The traveler carries a heavy pack filled with stones, each stone etched with words: guilt, anger, betrayal, desire, fear. With every step, the weight pulls harder, and the horizon always seems just out of reach. When the traveler dies, they collapse in exhaustion, only to awaken again at the start of the same desert, the pack strapped anew to their shoulders. But what the traveler does not realize is that the pack is not locked. Each stone can be dropped at any time. Yet the habit of carrying them is so deeply ingrained that the pilgrim believes the burden is inevitable. Lifetimes pass in this desert until one day, in a moment of grace, the traveler places a single stone on the sand and realizes the horizon suddenly feels closer. That is reincarnation, a desert that repeats itself until you discover the pack is of your own making and the weight has always been yours to release. Another allegory lies in the wheel itself, the ancient symbol of samsara. Picture a massive wheel, ornate and endless, spinning in the void. Upon its rim, countless figures are attached, each living out dramas of joy and suffering. Some climb upward, basking in temporary pleasures, while others fall downward, lost in despair. Yet all remain bound to the rim, turning endlessly. At the center of the wheel, however, is stillness. In the hub there is no motion, no rising or falling, no birth or death. The wheel turns around this still point, and liberation lies not in clinging to the rim or climbing higher, but in moving inward, toward the unmoving center. This is the hidden teaching. As long as you live outwardly on the rim, caught in attachments, fears, and identifications, you remain in motion, bound to the cycle. But when you turn inward and discover the center, you realize you were never spinning at all. The ancient Egyptians offered another powerful narrative, the weighing of the heart. At death, the soul stands before the scales of Maat, where the heart is weighed against the feather of truth. If the heart is heavy with unresolved burdens, it sinks, and the soul must return. If it is light, balanced, free, the soul transcends. This story is not merely about judgment, but about resonance. A heavy heart is bound to density, to the material plane, to the repetition of form. A light heart vibrates with eternity and slips beyond the wheel. The allegory is simple yet profound. Your reincarnations are the direct result of the heaviness you refuse to release. The heart must be emptied of stones before it can rise. The Gnostics told stories of archons, gatekeepers between worlds, who trick the soul into returning by dazzling it with visions or terrifying it with fear. At the threshold of death, the soul, disoriented and vulnerable, is persuaded to re-enter the cycle. But the awakened soul, remembering its true origin, looks at the archons and sees only shadows, illusions with no power. In recognizing the deception, the soul passes beyond their grasp. The allegory is not a literal account of cosmic entities, but a mirror for our own inner gatekeepers. The voices of doubt, fear, and attachment that seduce us into repeating the same patterns. Liberation comes not from defeating them in battle, but from seeing through their disguise. And then there is the story of the dreamer and the mirror. A sage once asked, "How many lives will you live before you realize you are dreaming them all?" In the story, a man dreams he is a beggar, struggling to find food. He wakes to discover he is actually a king, resting in his palace. But when he rises, he realizes the palace too was a dream, and he is actually a child sleeping beneath a tree. Again he wakes, again he dreams, until the line between waking and dreaming blurs entirely. At last, he sees a mirror before him, and in the mirror, he realizes he is not the beggar, the king, or the child, but the dreamer behind them all. The story reveals reincarnation as layers of dream stacked upon dream, each life convincing you of its reality, until at last you see the dreamer and awaken. What unites these narratives is the reminder that reincarnation is not punishment, nor reward, nor meaningless repetition. It is a mirror, reflecting back to you what remains unseen, and a classroom, offering the same lesson until it is finally integrated. The desert of stones shows the burden of attachment. The wheel reveals the trap of the rim and the liberation of the center. The scales of Ma'at remind us that the weight of the heart determines whether we rise or return. The archons demonstrate that our jailers are only as powerful as our belief in them, and the dreamer in the mirror unveils the most radical truth of all, that the roles we play are illusions, and the one who plays them is eternal. To live these stories is to begin to see your own life differently. That recurring conflict with a family member is not random. It is the same stone you have carried across lifetimes. The attraction to a stranger who feels familiar is the echo of the wheel turning again. The heaviness in your heart is the residue that keeps you bound. And the dreams that disturb or enlighten you are reminders that you are both the actor and the dreamer. Reincarnation, then, is not just a concept to be believed or dismissed. It is an archetypal story in which you are the protagonist, playing the same themes until you recognize them as themes, not as your essence. The real reason you keep reincarnating is because the story is unfinished, the mirror unrecognized, the heart still heavy. And once you understand the allegory, you begin to live differently, not as one trapped on the rim, but as one moving toward the stillness at the center. And sometimes the silence is louder than a storm, because when heaven grows quiet, it isn't absence, it's strategy. God hides his voice not to abandon you, but to sharpen your discernment, to push you beyond the noise of emotions so you can recognize his whisper. Just as a teacher stays silent during the exam, so too does God when your faith is being tested, because he wants you to remember what you've already been taught. The delay you feel, the stillness you fear, is not rejection. It is the sacred pause before revelation. So instead of panicking in the quiet, lean deeper, because the moment you stop demanding to hear him is often the moment you begin to see him in everything. When the silence finally breaks, it won't just be an answer. It will be a revelation that redefines everything you thought you knew. God will not return you to where you were. He will launch you into where you were always meant to be. The prayers you whispered in tears will resurface as testimonies. The seasons that felt wasted will suddenly make sense. And the strength you built in the unseen will carry you into the very place you once doubted you would ever reach. What looked like a delay was in fact divine alignment. And when it arrives, you'll realize that God was never late. He was always precise. And this is where the story turns. The silence, the waiting, the wrestling, were never meant to break you. They were meant to build you. What once felt like unanswered prayers will now stand as monuments of faith, proving that God was working even when you couldn't trace Him. The breakthrough won't just bless you, it will transform you into living evidence that patience is power, trust is victory, and silence is not God's absence, but His preparation. And when you finally step into the promise, you won't just thank Him for what arrived, you'll thank Him for the silence that shaped you into someone strong enough to carry it.